Hello there. There is something that the establishment does not want you to know about, and it's hidden in plain sight. There is an establishment agenda, an agenda that will continue whether or not you agree with it. And the establishment is doing all it can to either nudge you into believing it is the right path to follow or to bully you into compliance with it. No wonder people are so disaffected with politics and don't feel fully represented by any political party that has a chance of getting into government. All because our establishment Lib Lab Con Green Uniparty, which it turns out is a hydra with many heads, is completely disconnected with the people of Britain. And to be honest, all mainstream political offerings on the table seem bent on destroying the UK. It's not even as if any of those parties can come up with a total reimagining of Britain for the 21st century. A reimagining that is rooted in Britain's heritage, culture and traditions anyway. No, we are expected to welcome a dark multitude of sinister changes to our freedoms, culture and religion. Is this what Rishi Sunak was hinting at in his recent speech when he talked about so many changes coming our way? And ultimately we are having moral change thrust upon us, where we have to accept things that our forefathers would have instantly rejected, if not fought vehemently against. And this is not restricted to the UK, it is mirrored across the Western world from the EU to the US and beyond. And all we can look forward to here is a Labour government that will prove even more disastrous than this rotten Tory government. Neither of them has any appetite to really change our discredited democratic system. We desperately need a new party to step forward with radical root and branch reforms. Otherwise we will continue down the path to self-destruction, while, waiting in the wings, there is a religious political force that is growing in power, and it has a thirst for the total transformation of our political, social and demographic makeup. Unless we change now to head this off, it's coming. And the big problem we have right now is the ever more open borders, which will, in very short order, take all asylum-seeking, legal migration and illegal immigration and convert them into one single, full-on, legal right of entry, with the new host nation having the responsibility to be assimilated by the newcomers. Yes, we are being browbeaten into complying with our guests' demands. Just look around you, it's happening today. And even our monarch, King Charles III, has said he wants us to be more welcoming. And the fact that all developed nations' governments are in lockstep over this should indicate to you how organised all of this is. And the politicians claim they will address this issue. But they never do. They just push out platitudes like we need more of them because they boost the economy, and then expect us to swallow it. It's good for our gross domestic product, they claim, neglecting to point out the obvious. Our population is the highest it's ever been. The tax take is at its highest for decades. Employment rates are high. And right now GDP per capita, which is taken as a measure of how well off each person in the country is falling on a quarterly basis. We're actually getting poorer per person. This all comes out in the figures they quietly publish, while we're told that we'll all be richer the more newcomers we accept. And now we're informed that we can't cut student visa numbers because it would crash the higher education market. Government ministers said they wanted the Migration Advisory Committee to take a look at the educational visa system with a view to cutting the numbers, because there are fears that the graduate visa route is a backdoor route to long-term immigration. as one of the pull factors for UK universities is, once they've completed the course, they can work here for 2 years or 3 years if they've done a PhD. Permanent residence and citizenship then beckons. Anyway, the unelected committee, chaired by Professor Brian Bell, came back with a report that said, "No way, Jose," because restricting that graduate route would put so many universities at financial risk. Now, the Migration Advisory Committee says it is an independent, non-statutory, non-time limited, non-departmental public body that advises the government on migration issues. Advises being the operative word. But nowadays, any minister who ignores or refuses expert advice puts their job at risk. The Migration Advisory Committee, which is supported by 20 economists, social researchers, statisticians and policy communication staff, also says it bases all recommendations on what it sees as being in the interests of the resident population, taking account that migration has different effects on different groups. 2 points there. Firstly, the committee bases its recommendations on what it, as a body, believes, and the government, i.e. democracy, appears to have no input. Secondly, the committee says it recommends based on the interests of the resident population. I would just point out that the resident population is everybody. It also includes all newcomers, either illegal or on visas. It's not just the Brits. And what the committee appears to be saying is that the current housing crisis, being caused by overpopulation due to inward migration, is a good thing for the resident population so we can take more students. That a stretched NHS would benefit from keeping inward migration at high levels, including students. That turning some areas of the country into mass student accommodation is good for us. Student accommodation that someone, somewhere, profits handsomely from, by the way, while prioritising those high-fee-paying foreign students over our own is also good for the resident population, it seems. They probably also think it's great to have uni students taking over their campuses for their pro-Hamas nonsense too. Upshot, the universities and investors do very nicely, while the rest of us pay the real price as we hunt for affordable accommodation and a GP. Now, the people of Ireland are just about fully awake on their predicament, while the UK populace still seems a little bit drowsy over the issue. Yes, despite Brexit, we still seem unable to force our own government to rein in legal migration and call a halt to the rubberboat channel crossings. Now, an interesting development is that, according to GB News, the EU is facing growing demands from more than half of its member states to allow them to control their own migration policies and asking for the right to introduce Rwanda-style deportation schemes. Italy and the Czech Republic are leading the revolt, made up of 19 member states. EU member states asking Brussels to have their own power to control migration back? Brussels surrendering power back to member states? What have they been smoking? And how dare they follow in the footsteps of Brexit UK? While the legal attacks on the probably now doomed UK Rwanda scheme continue, with the Northern Ireland High Court ruling the scheme incompatible with the post-Brexit Northern Ireland arrangements. You'd think that the government lawyers would have dealt with that particular loophole, wouldn't you? Anyway, the UK Supreme Court will no doubt be next, followed in short order by a case in the Council of Europe's European Courts of Human Rights over it. But as Northern Ireland is still in the EU single market, will the EU's courts at the ECJ still have a say, if not the final say? And I very much doubt that the bookies will be offering odds on that particular case. In the meantime, it will make the whole island of Ireland, north and south, a stronger magnet for all EU and UK migrants who have no real asylum case. And the boats will continue to come, unabated. All going very nicely along the lines of the UN WEF plan, isn't it?